The next thing I want to go over is the tiny blue sliver that can sometimes be seen in between the eyeball and the sclera. The blue color I'm using is called Spa Blue by Ceramco. It's just a pale shade of blue with just a little hint of gray to it. I'm going to mix it with my black until it makes kind of a medium shade between the two. And what I'll do is I'm going to paint this color right along the front of the eye. I just want to leave a little sliver of black between this color and the sclera. I'll take it just right along the front edge of the eye from top eyelid to lower eyelid. Now this little blue line can also be seen at the back of the eye sometimes too, so if you want to put it back there as well, you can go ahead and do that. I know this looks a little sloppy towards the inside of that eye, but I'm about to fix that. Now I'm going to go back in with my black and leave just a tiny sliver of that blue right at the edge there. It generally takes me a couple of tries to get the black into the blue enough without demolishing the blue. Half the time I do my blue, I go back in with my black, and then I have to redo the blue because I've had the black get on the wrong spot. I just want the tiniest sliver. This is kind of a nerve-wracking step, so if you don't want to do it, I don't think anyone would fault you for it. So I'll go ahead and finish this up, and I need to let my black dry before I move on to my iris. Now I'm going to start on my iris. The colors I use for my iris are nutmeg brown, burnt umber, and a little bit of gold. If you can't find nutmeg brown, you can look for a medium shade of warm brown that should work nicely. Something a little bit lighter than the burnt umber and a warm shade. The first thing I'll do is I'm going to mix my burnt umber and my nutmeg brown. About a 50-50 mix will do. I just want a nice medium shade between those two colors. And I'll go in and I'll paint the eyeball. Again, just leaving the tiniest hint of black in between that iris and that little blue sliver I added earlier. If you skip the blue color, you would just leave a little black line between the iris and the eye whites. Now, if you wanted to be on the safe side, you could seal each layer before moving on to the next. That way, say I'm putting down this brown layer right now, and it gets onto my eye whites and in my blue line. I can just take a Q-tip and get the end of it damp and just wipe those acrylics away. Well, if it's not sealed, then it might wipe away the acrylics you've already laid down. So just something to keep in mind when you're working. You might want to seal those layers in just to protect yourself. Now I've let that last coat dry, and I'm going to put another coat of my nutmeg brown and burnt umber mixture just to get it more solid. I do my eyes a little bit darker than most folks, and also a lot of artists, they'll do it a little differently than me. They'll do the top half of the eyeball darker and do the lower half lighter, as if the sun's hitting that lower part of the eye. It really comes down to personal preference as to which method you want to do, but you can still use the same colors for both methods. Now while that layer is still wet, I'm going to keep moving forward. I'm going to go in with my straight burnt umber, and I'm going to go right at the back side of this eye. I just like for that last coat to be wet so I can blend it just a little bit easier. And while that's still wet, I'm going to take my straight nutmeg brown, which is this chestnut shade, and mix it with the tiniest hint of gold. I don't want a lot of metallic showing, just a little hint of it there. Not that there's any gold in a real horse's eye, I just like to use it for a little bit of depth. Now I'm going to take that color and just go along the front of this eye. Again, I like a smooth transition, so I do this while my other colors on the eye are still wet. I keep all three colors on my plate at the same time, so if I need to apply more to help me blend in, I have them all ready to go. And I'll take that nutmeg brown and gold mix and just slowly ease that back on in into the wet burnt umber that's at the back of the eye. That way and smooth the transition in the middle. At this point it's just subtle and probably hard to see in my bad lighting. Now we're ready to do our pupil. I'm just going to be using straight black for this. Now if you want to have those edges sort of feather into the iris, you could lay the pupil down while the iris color is still wet. I'm going to do short strokes up and down to slightly have a bit unevenness to the edge. Please note, the pupils on a horse are not round, they're elongated. It's very easy to locate photos of horses' eyes, so just make sure you get the shape of that pupil correct. And here's our pupil so far. The next thing I'm going to do is the haze over the pupil. Now this can be quite overdone in the hobby, and I don't do it on all of my horses, but it can add a nice touch if it's something that you want to do. I take my spa blue and mix it with my black like how I did for the rim earlier, and I want it about the same color, not too blue, not too black, but a grayish blue. And I want to go in and do the same shape as the pupil but make it smaller, just on the inside of that pupil. Now if you get it on there and it dries too light, you can go back over it with extremely thin black acrylics and do just a thin wash over that area to subdue it. You could also do this haze in colored pencils or pastels as well. And when you go to gloss your horse's eyes, I really recommend using a glossy varnish. There's several different brands out there to choose from. Just find one that you like. I recommend this over clear nail polish because it's a little bit easier to clean up in case you mess up along the way. And here's our eye pretty much finished up. Now I know it looks quite dark here, but once I gloss it, that's going to pop a lot of those colors out and make it a bit more vibrant as well. We'll end this video with close-ups of some eyes that I've done using this same method.